Hello fellow problem solvers. So today we're going to be doing a problem from the Tournament of Towns, fall of 2007, Junior A level, problem number 7. For those of you that want to get better at your combinatorics problem solving, I suggest the Tournament of Towns. Take the Junior, O, or A level problems that are combinatorics. They are beautiful, such as this problem right here. And here I would invite you to take a minimum of 30 minutes, ideally an hour to an hour and a half, but not more than 2.5 hours in trying to solve this problem all by yourself. If on the other hand you'd like to go along with us, I suggest you take a preliminary look of 15 to 20 minutes. So now, without further ado, let's begin. So in this problem, we have each letter assigned to a word, such that each letter is contained in the word it's assigned to. And we have the first document is the word that's assigned from A, and that every subsequent document consists of words that all the letters in the document are assigned to. So F of letter for each letter in the previous document. And we must show that if the 40th document begins with this, till whatsoever side guards my moving, then we must show that this appears in the document again at some point. Now when you see this type of problem, it's like that math meme of x is equal to y squared minus 2 plus z and find the area of the sun. It seems like something so weird, like we just have these things and then till whatsoever star that guides my moving. Like it doesn't seem to be having any, what sentence is this? Is the sentence just a ruse meant to throw us off? We don't know. But let's get down to the basics. So the first thing is, okay, the English alphabet, how many letters does it have? Well, it has 26 letters. That might be important in some way. Now let's see, what can we infer from the 40th document begins with this? I invite you to take 5 to 15 minutes and see, what can you infer? Given that the 40th document begins with this sentence, can you infer anything about the first word, like every other word? Like, what can you find? So the first thing, and this is why I really like this problem, is because it really showcases the beginning confusion once you see a problem that's a very good problem that you don't really know how to begin this. So we should explore. And what we can look at is, okay, so there's an A in we A. Can the A be at the beginning of this word? Yeah, the answer is no. Because why? If we A began with A, then we would have the document 2 begin with we A as well. And then document 3 and every subsequent document would begin with the word associated with A. Like notation, I'm just associating we A is the word associated with A, and DI is the ith document. And this is something I would actually take into account. I would actually write this down if I was on a competition. This might not be important at all, but it's good to know, like A is not at the beginning of VA, so it's like some other letter is the first letter of VA. And now maybe I would invite you here perhaps to play around, like, okay, if A is the first letter of VA, then what if the first letter of we A, what if it's B? And then the first letter of we B, what if this is C? And then it goes to Z, and then it must go back somewhere else. Like, play around with this sort of thing idea, see if you can get anything from this. And here, I would actually invite you to take about 10 to 20 minutes playing around, exploring some more. And here's the next sort of thing that you may notice is, okay, so A is going to be part of this, we A. Now, given that A is a part of we A, that means we A is going to be in the document D2. Like, that's also important. What about this here? Well, at some point it's going to go back to the same letter. And can we infer anything from this? So there's going to be a cycle by the time we get to D40. Like, the first word will cycle back. So, till will have to have appeared somewhere before in another document. Okay, so now we have this. We A is in D2. Can we do anything else? Let's see, maybe can any document begin with, can any other letter begin with itself? Like, could we have just B goes to B? We could maybe have A goes to T and then T goes to T, like the first letter of the word WT might be T, and that seems to be okay. It would have to be till, like T could go to till, and then we would be still having till, and we would get till being the first word here. Interesting. So let's see, like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 words. 740 maybe? 26 plus 2 times 7 is 40. Could this be of any use? I don't know. I would write this down. If I was on a test, I would write down everything I noticed. Okay, T could go to till. So far, it seems like that's the case. So now I'm kind of out of ideas. Let me give a easy example. Let's say A goes to Bab. Let's say B goes to Cab. I don't know. Let's say this. So the first document is going to be Bab. Like, these don't have to be actual English words. Let's assume they don't have to be by now, or bad. Okay, D1 is Bab, and then D2 will be Cab, Bab, and then Cab, and then document 3. Okay, like we have the word, we document 3. Let's say C goes to tab. I'm good with these one-letter words. So we have tab, and then we have, oh wait a second, so we have this word, we'll have Bab, so we'll have D2. So we'll have tab, and then we'll have Bab, and then we'll have Cab, and then we'll have D2 from Bab. We'll just get D2 now. And then we'll have Cab, we'll get tab, Bab, Cab. Okay, so D2 is in D3. Now if we say D4, let's say T goes to Dab. And now we have Dab. Well, when applying the function to D2, we will get D3 here again, and then we'll have something extra from here. Okay, so maybe there's something to be found here as well. And now that we've been playing around with these sorts of words, I invite you to take about, let's say, 5 to 20 minutes and play with the problem and see what you find. Here's the sort of next step. So this is what we have. The case document contains the k-1, and it's not at the beginning. We know that because the first document doesn't begin with A. So that means that D1 will be later down the line. It won't be at the beginning. And we know that W8 doesn't begin with A. So what we have here, just looking at this example, we see at some point we will run into the same letter at the beginning that we had previously. And then we have D1 at the beginning. And then we'll have, for D8, we will have what? We'll have D1 will go to D2 at the beginning and something else in D7. But D7 contains D2. So it means we'll have D2 and D2 twice. And this seems like something that could be useful in us trying to prove, because now we have D3, D8 at the end. This is inside this. So this seems like something that could be useful in trying to prove that the first couple of words, meaning words till whatsoever star that guides my moving, words that appear at the beginning might appear at the end. Like this might be something that's useful for that end. And now, if you haven't come up with this idea, I invite you to pause for another 10 minutes and just like try to push it. And if you just want to enjoy the show, then the next sort of thing is looking at, okay, what are we interested in here? Well, we're interested in when does the first letter sort of repeat itself? Now, when trying to do this, like what I tried to get A to repeat itself. A, like here we went from A to B to C to T to D to E and back to A. But say if E didn't go to A, if instead E went to say that, then we would have gone from E back to D. And now this would have looked a bit differently, right? We would have started with, instead of Abe here, we would have had, what is it? We would have had that. and then we would have had a different sort of thing. But the important thing here is to look at, once we don't get what we exactly want, the important thing is to look at and see, how does that change our whole thing? Well, what these whole next couple of documents would be is, we would get this, like we would get that more words, like we'd add an ed here. And then we'd had that ed, and then we'd had that ed and that ed here. And then more words would match up. Add that, add that. Like more and more words would be matching up. And we would still have the previous document at the end. So this seems like something that could be useful. Now take 5 minutes and try to connect this idea to the problem and try to solve the problem. Because here's the thing. We know that among the first couple of words, D1, D2, till D, say 27, 2 of them will have to begin with the same letter. It just has to be that way because like there's 26 letters in the alphabet. And now with that, say that it is DI and DJ with J greater than I. And now we have DI is a part of DJ and they begin with the same word, with the same letter, just the same letter. But that means that DI plus 1 and DJ plus 1 begin not just with the same letter, but with the same word. And then DI plus 2 and DJ plus 2. If the word has more than one letter, then these share 2 words in common. Like the first 2 words they share in common. And no thing, no letter, no letter can just like map to itself. If T mapped to T, because then like we would have D40 would begin with T, not till. So we know that at least every word that shows up here in the sequence maps not just to itself, but maps to some other letter, and it has some other letters outside of itself. So then we'll know that D40, like this is like J plus 40 minus J, and DI plus 40 minus J will begin with the first 40 minus J words, right? And like this is the first 1 word, first 2 words, and the first 40 minus J words. And then this will make us done. So 40 minus J, J is at most 47, so 40 minus J is at least 13. So D40 and DI 40 minus J begin with the same, how many? 13 words. And now because D40 contains DI plus 40 minus J, and it's not at the beginning, this means that the first 13 words that appear here will appear later on in the sequence because this is part of this and it's not at the beginning. So that solves the problem. And now let's write this idea up. I invite you to take 5 to 15 minutes and try to write this up. Here it is. So first we say this. We label our terms and we let F be this mapping. We first say we know that WA doesn't start with an A because then if it did, DI would be start with A for all I, which is not true for D40. And now we know that D2 contains F of A, which is D1, and then D3 contains F of D1, which is D2. And inductively, we can say this just inductively. Depending on the competition, they might want you to lay out the induction. In some cases like this, they can just tell you, hey, it's okay if you just write inductively. The rule of thumb is the higher the competition, the more the ideas matter and less the technique. And so we have this. And now that we've said that dk minus 1 is a part of dk, but it's not at the beginning, then we move on to the third step, which is that di and dj, for some I and j less than 27, and different start with the same letter, because English has 26 letters. This is by purely pigeonhole. And now with this, we use this, and the second fact, which is any letter that begins with a document di for I less than 40 cannot map to just itself, Because if it did, all subsequent documents would begin with just itself, which is not the case for D40. And now we combine these facts, though very carefully, because here's a mistake I made. I made the mistake that, then we know that DI plus 1 and DJ plus 1 begin with the same word. And I assumed, okay, and then this will give us the first two words. And the second word will also have 2 letters, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. So that's where I made a mistake. But now we move on to the fifth step, which is combining these two, 3 and 4, which is the DI plus 1 and DJ have the same first word. Then this word has at least 2 letters. So DI plus 1 and DJ plus 2 share the same first 2 words. Then DI plus 3 and DJ plus 3 have the first 2 words, same first 2 words from the first word, and at least 1 more word from the second word in DI plus 2, which gives us at least 3 first words are identical. And then we can say inductively, basically, that DI plus T and DI plus J share the same first T words at a minimum. And now, finally, we move on to the 6th step, which is that because J is less than 27, that means that the I plus 4T minus J and the 4T share the same 4T minus J, which is greater than or equal to 13 first words. And now this thing right here implies that the word, till whatsoever started guides my moving, is an element of the I plus 4T minus J, which is a part of D40, but not at the beginning. This is what we needed to prove. This solves the problem. And as always, thanks for problem solving.